Hey everybody, so in this video we're going to be doing some more examples of domain and range for graphs. Alright, so let's jump into number 5. So starting with domain, we look at the leftmost point. Now this one's going to be a little bit different because our leftmost point is actually an arrow. Alright, anytime you see an arrow, that means the graph actually just keeps going and going and going. So we can't just circle it and say that -6, -7, that's our leftmost point. Because all of these things underneath it are actually further to the left, all of these points down there. So anytime we see an arrow, since it keeps going forever, that's actually going to either be infinity or negative infinity, depending on the direction it's pointing. So remember, right is infinity, left is negative infinity, down is negative infinity, and up is positive infinity. Alright, so in our case, it's going to the left. That means it's going to be negative infinity. And anytime we have infinity, whether it be positive or negative, we're going to use parentheses. Alright, now let's look at the right side. So right side, again, another arrow. So this arrow is pointing to the right, so it's going to be positive infinity, and another parentheses, and that would be our domain. Alright, now let's look at the range. So for the range, we have arrows pointing down, so our lowest point would be negative infinity. Alright, now our highest point. So it does actually stop whenever it's going up and turns around. So we do have a highest point, and that would be at 4. Now remember, this one gets a bracket because it doesn't have any circle whatsoever. And it also doesn't have an arrow. Alright, let's go ahead and move on to number 6. So leftmost point, we see an arrow. So that means negative infinity with parentheses. Rightmost point, again we see an arrow. So it'll be positive infinity and parentheses. Alright, if we do the range now, the lowest point, see an arrow, that means negative infinity. And the highest point, we see an arrow, so that would be positive infinity. And then we're done with number 6. Alright, number 7. So domain first, leftmost point. So leftmost point does actually stop at -4. So we have -4 with a bracket. The rightmost point is an arrow. So that means infinity and parentheses. Alright, now the range. So for range, the bottom point is at 0. So that's 0. The topmost point, again, is an arrow. So positive infinity. All right, number 8. Leftmost point would be -2 with a bracket. Rightmost point would be +2 with a bracket. For range, bottom point, -2 with a bracket, and top point would be +2, again with a bracket. All right. Now, one thing I do want to point out about this one is if you remember the vertical line test, If we drew a vertical line right here, hits it in 2 spots. So this one actually isn't a function, but we can still talk about domain and range and do it in the same way. But since it's not a function, we're usually not going to go much further with anything like this. All right, last two. So for number 9, domain first, so leftmost point, we see an arrow, so negative infinity. Rightmost point, we see an arrow, so positive infinity. All right, and then the range. So for range, we look for the bottom point. Bottom point is going to be -3 in this case. And then the top point. See an arrow, means it goes all the way to infinity. All right, and the last one. So for domain, leftmost point is an arrow, so negative infinity. Rightmost point is an arrow, so positive infinity. For range, for going down, we see an arrow, so it's negative infinity. And our topmost point is here at -2. So it goes up to -2 with a bracket. And that's it for domain and range of graphs.